Hey friends, Jill here. Welcome back to Whispering Willow Farm. I hope you all have had a fantastic Christmas and have just been spending time with your family. We have all three of our girls this week home from school, and so that's exactly what Nathan and I have been doing. We've been playing a lot of board games, we've been baking a lot, drinking extra cups of coffee and staying up way too late. So my content this week's probably gonna just kind of be sporadic because we're really just trying to spend time with the family and the kids and just packing, having them home this week. But I am out here in the greenhouse because yesterday, y'all, I'll just be honest, holidays are hard for me. I love Nathan and my kids, and I love to make Christmas this special thing for them. But I know that for many people, holidays can be this really joyous time, and it can also be this really difficult time. And I kind of lie somewhere in the middle of that. It's a joyous time because it's the birth of our Savior, and I know how much it means to my children. However, if I'm being completely honest, holidays are hard for me on a personal level due to some personal reasons. And so I was just kind of feeling that this year. We did Christmas by ourselves. I didn't see any of my family. We didn't see any of Nathan's family really. And so it was just a hard year, and so I was kind of in this funky mood, and what better therapy than plant therapy? And so I told Nathan yesterday, I was like, I just need a couple hours to just get my head right and get in a good space. And he was like, absolutely. He was very, very considerate. So I went to a local nursery. If you're local to me, it's called the Plant Outlet. They have a lot of really, really good resources, and so I went and I bought all of these lovely things because, believe it or not, we've been in our house since August and we are finally unboxing and putting things away. And so that's something else we had on our list all week, is to get everything unboxed and really just start putting our house together, which I think might have played a part too in the holidays. Is just kind of still feeling unsettled a little. We've been so busy, and so we are dedicating this week to getting things done. And so I have bought all of these plants behind me, and I thought it'd be fun if we just had a quiet morning in the greenhouse and planted some things up. I did want to talk through some seed starting stuff with you guys while I am potting some of these things. It is definitely when we approach January, that is really my cue, because by Valentine's Day I'm starting most of my vegetables, and so that is something that is just right here on the forefront. And although I have ordered all of my flower seeds for the year, I just put in my dahlia order, which was the last flower I needed to order. I've not bought any vegetable seeds, and I'm not sure that I'm going to. I need to kind of reevaluate my seed collection, but the seed catalogs have been coming in, you guys. I don't know if you've been getting them, but I got Seed Savers, I got Baker's Creek, I got Johnny's. I got another one that Jessica had subscribed to that I'd never heard of that I'm excited to look through. But it is the time to be thinking about it, and normally this time of year you don't want to do anything but cozy up by a fire. Here in Arkansas, I am in shorts right now, and this t-shirt is 70 degrees. Yesterday it was 80 degrees. The weather here is absolutely insane. And so it certainly doesn't feel like winter, and although I want to just shift outside and do a bunch of stuff, I know I gotta keep on track, and I gotta get things in order. That way we have seeds here in time, and supplies as well. That's one thing I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about. There's nothing worse than waiting to the last minute and one, not being able to get seed, but then also not being able to get the supplies or the soil that you need as well. So grab your cup of coffee, y'all, and let's dive in. So many of you know I love houseplants about as much as I love all the other plants. My house is full of houseplants. It really kind of gets me through winter, if I'm being honest. Being able to do stuff like this, even when we lived in our at our old house, I would go out into the greenhouse in the dead of winter. I'd buy some houseplants, pot them up, go inside. I'd see the lush greenery, and it really did just put me in a really good space. And so houseplants have always been something that just make me smile. Anytime I go in someone's house and I see plants, it's really just kind of an extension of who they are, and so I really love it. But I am wanting to also look into propagating houseplants and potentially selling those at local markets. And so that is something that this year I'm kind of being a bit more mindful. I'm taking a lot more detailed notes on houseplants that I haven't ever really in the past. I got this some sort of variation of a spider plant. I have a fern, which does really well in bathrooms, which is what I'm gonna do with this one. I got a bunch of little air plants. I'd also heard too, and I would love to know your guys' opinion on this. I've never bought air plants before because I've heard that they can be really toxic to your other plants and kill them. And when I was talking to the nursery owner, I had asked him, hey, is there anything I need to do? Like, do I need to keep these away from some of my other plants? And he was like, that's totally a myth. Like, they're not harmful to any other plant or to anything. And then I thought, maybe did I dream this? Is this really a thing? Have you guys heard that before? Because I've always been reluctant to buy the air plants because that's what I had always thought. Is that they weren't good with other things. Then I have this philodendron. Look how pretty that is. This one's gonna go in my bedroom. I bought a huge cactus. I'm gonna pan you guys around. Look at that big old thing right there. It'll poke me, that's why I'm not getting it. And then I got this bird of paradise. Look how pretty that is. So, all right, so let's get started planting. Let's get started talking through seed starting. These are things, I'm gonna walk you guys through things that go through my mind when I think about seed starting. Now, I did do a video a while ago, how to shop your seed catalog. I'll try to figure out how to put it up here, like the info card. If not, I'll leave it in the description below. Many of you guys said that was super helpful, so I am glad that is helpful. And that is probably one of my biggest tips for you guys when you're thinking through seed starting. And I mentioned this in that video as well, is you have to have a plan, you guys. Coming from someone who spent years just like ordering on the fly, doing it all by the seat of my pants, we don't really have that luxury anymore. Not just for the fact of like it will be more beneficial to you and your farm if you plan, just the supply issues we've been having. I don't think that we have that luxury anymore. I mean, I remember, you know, a couple years ago, like I could not get soil. That was a really, really scary thought. And so you do kind of need to plan ahead, but since there are shortages like this, you don't need to go and just buy stock of all the soil, because then there are other people that need the soil. And so figuring out if you're going to use a potting mix, a seed starting mix, making sure you have enough on hand for what you need. We actually, my friend Sean went up to Northwest Arkansas and bought like one of those huge, I don't even know what types of bags they are, but it's like what Big Feed comes in. He bought 2 bags full of soil, and that's what we did because it was cheaper to do that. It was a couple $100, and obviously his time going up there. But he was able to use that to plant his tulips, and then we'll be able to reuse that soil as well for all of our seed starting stuff. And so if you are growing at a really, really large scale, that is something to consider. Would definitely be soil. Making sure that you have enough soil but not overbuying. So that's one thing I would definitely recommend while you're thinking through your plan for the new year, and what you're going to do in the spring for your garden. Soil definitely has to be one of those things that's on the top of the list. So another thing that I really think through when it comes to seed starting and what I need, soil is surprisingly probably the top thing. I figure out where can I access bulk soil, do they have it, and figuring out my budget for that. And then seeds is obviously really important. Like I had mentioned, I have bought all of my flower seeds, but I have not bought any of my vegetable seeds, and that's because I didn't want to buy before I went through my inventory. And so I encourage you guys to do that as well. Evaluate what your inventory looks like before you ever start buying that. However, seeds, yes, it is a crucial part. It's not like, when I think of like seeds starting, like equipment and supplies I need, the first thing that comes to mind isn't really seeds. I'm thinking about soil, I'm thinking about trays, I'm thinking about heat mats, and so that's kind of what I want to focus on today, because more than likely most of you guys have an idea of what you want to grow in your gardens for the spring. You've probably already bought a lot of that, if I had to guess. So 2 of the most important things you're going to need when it comes to seed starting is 1, soil, right? You can't grow or start any seeds without it. So that would definitely be, you know, your top priority, is to source out your soil. If you're growing a lot, try to find it in bulk. But then 2, figuring out your trays and your pots. Are you keeping these for your farm to where you can reuse them every year? Are you maybe selling them to where you want to buy a cheaper type of pot because you're not sure if you're going to get it back? These are all things to think through. We do a plant sale every single year, and so the trays that I am starting my things in and sending them off in, they are not coming back to me. And so that is something that I think about. Either I incorporate it in the cost if I choose to use a nicer reusable pot that they can take home and reuse, or if I use a cheap one, you know, it kind of depends on what your budget and what your goals are. What we start majority of our things in. Now our flower seeds are the exception because we are starting thousands and thousands of flower seeds. So I am talking specifically for vegetables, and most of our flowers that we're selling at the plant sale we're doing in 6-packs and not as individuals anyway. So that's a bit different, but I bottom water all of my starts, which is what I recommend you guys do as well. So these deep 10-20 trays is what I set all of my stuff in, and it makes it just so much easier. Everything I use for the most part that, you know, is from my farm or from Bootstrap Farmers, the trays just last. And then I get these 32 cell inserts. So that fits right in here, and I'm actually gonna grab a tray because I was playing around with starting some stuff the other day, and you'll see where the pots just fit in them really, really nicely. So here, all of my pots just stick in here. Super, super easy to water. Also super, super easy to transport. Say you are using these and you're gonna sell them, you're taking them to a plant sale, even if you're just moving them from a greenhouse into your garden, knowing that they don't move is huge. I cannot tell you, as a rookie gardener, how many times I tried to just like line different size pots and these deep trays and they'd fall over. I'd end up having broken plants. It was honestly just kind of a nightmare. So think through that, figure out a good system that works for you, figure out a size that works for you. These are 2.5-inch pots, so although you could start some stuff in them, if you're letting them get super, super big, maybe this 2.5-inch pot won't be big enough. That is gonna be dependent on what you are growing and how long you plan on having it in here. Now you can start it in here and up pot it. One thing that I've done in the past is I would start all my tomatoes in 128 cell trays, which I also get from Bootstrap. And then I would up pot them here, and then usually I'd up pot them again. That's a lot of time. And so this year, I'm not doing that. I have literally tripled my growing space, y'all. And so I'm not doing that this year. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna start all mine in these 2.5-inch pots, and then they're just gonna go from here into the garden. So I'll have to figure out my timing on that a bit well. There might be some that get really leggy that I need to up pot, but other than that, that's gonna save me time, it's gonna save me soil, and it's just gonna be, to me, worth it. So figuring out your pots, this is actually my collection, the Harvest Collection. I collaborated with Bootstrap Farmer. Everything I'm listing today will be linked down below. The good thing about this, any trays, it doesn't matter where you buy them. I'm gonna tell you to buy from Bootstrap Farmer because I've had the same trays for years and they last and last. You have to figure out what's gonna make sense for you. But if you buy something, maybe it's not from Bootstrap, maybe it's from a company that you trust, maybe it's from someone local, that's great. Whatever you choose to do, if you're investing the money in it, make sure that it's gonna last. How you take care of your pots, how you store them, how you sanitize them at the end of each season, that makes a huge difference. The reason I've been able to use the same trays for years and years is because I put good practices in place to make sure that they last really long. So figuring out your soil, figuring out the size pots you need, figuring out, are you bottom watering them? Do you have enough trays to be able to set them in to be able to do that? What does that look like? What are you growing? What size pots do you need? These are all really, really important things that you need to be thinking about, not just so much thinking about buying the seeds. Another thing is if you're in a greenhouse like this, my greenhouse will get hot. This is actually not even where I'm gonna be growing most of my plants. We have a seed starting tunnel being built right now by my friend. Real excited about it. We will have a heater ran out there, and I will do some stuff in here. I may just do microgreens. Maybe what this is, I'll probably have some experimental flowers in here. I may actually use this and do some sort of houseplant propagation situation, but you are gonna need some sort of heat more than likely if you're not growing them inside. We have a small little heater that comes in here. I'll find it on Amazon and link it. Pretty sure that's where I got it. We also have the bigger heater that's going to go in the seed starting tunnel. I'll find that and link it. But then you're also going to want heat mats, and essentially what the heat mat does is Haas Tools has one that I really like. It's super, super long, so it would go like the width of my greenhouse, and it's super long. You plug it in, you are going to need an outlet, and then you just sit all of your trays. So I would sit this entire thing on there once I planted it, and it's not ever gonna get too hot. It doesn't ever really dry out. It just keeps everything warm, and so it just speeds up the process a little. And so I have found that it is worth the investment. All of the heat mats that I have had for a while now, and they're good. Like, I take them out of the greenhouse at the end of the season. I roll them up. I store them with all my other seed starting stuff, which all gets stored in a tote in the shade. I do not keep any of that in my greenhouse because the sun is going to fade your pots. It's going to cause, you know, just like damage to your tools. Like, you really do need to have a good place to keep and store all this stuff that's out of the elements. I know that like this isn't exposed, but just the harsh sun that comes through this greenhouse can literally fade wood handle tools. It can fade your pots and warp them. If you're buying cheaper plastic parts, it can actually just melt them. And so that is something just to be mindful of as your storage option. Also, say you don't have a greenhouse, you can still start seeds. You can still grow food. You can buy a rack, a wire rack. I actually bought all mine from Home Depot, I believe. I'm sure there's other places online. And so you can buy them and you can start this inside. You will still need a heat mat for sure. And then you would need some grow lights. So I don't have grow lights out here in my greenhouse. I will not have grow lights out in my seed starting tunnel. But if you are growing inside, that would be another supply that you would need. You can also pretty much find them anywhere. You can go to a Lowe's or a Home Depot and you can buy grow lights. You can get them online is an option. And they're actually relatively pretty inexpensive, surprisingly. They're really not that expensive at all. And I have found that you don't have to buy the best one. There are some. I have a Mars Hydro that was sent to me, and it's a really good one. And we've had it for, gosh, probably 3 years now. It does a really good job. But I also have some that I spent very little on, you know, on Amazon, and for what I was needing them for, I think it did just as well. And so you're gonna need to figure out what your needs are again. And if that's gonna be your primary source for starting seeds, then maybe you do invest in one of the nicer grow lights, because you know that that's gonna be how you're gonna have to start seeds for a while. So that's just something that I can tell you what I do, right? I can tell you what I do. I can tell you what seed starting supplies I have on hand every single year before we embark on the seed starting season. But it's going to vary from person to person, from farm to farm, from your needs and my needs. And so know that that's okay. This is a really good chance to really just like this is a good chance to practice not comparing yourself and your farm and your garden to someone else, because you guys may see me do these videos and getting my seed starting tunnel set up and getting my greenhouse set up, and you may see all of these things that I have that for me may be necessary, but for you may be on a different scale than me, and that may be a larger scale. So you may be doing it like way, you know, bigger than I am, or you may be doing it way smaller than I am, and that's okay too. Don't compare what my seed starting needs are and my scale to your seed starting needs and your scale. Start small. If this is your first year growing and starting seeds, I am so proud of you. I remember being so intimidated when I first started to start my seeds. I didn't think I could do it, honestly. It was so intimidating and daunting to me to grow my own food. And so when I did it, I felt such a sense of accomplishment, and I just felt proud. Like, it gave me that boost of confidence, like, Jill, you can do it. And now look at me, like, I grow all of the things that we eat on our farm. That feels really good. It feels good, and I have faith in you that you guys can do it. Do not get discouraged. I cannot tell you how many plants I have killed. I mean, I have killed trays and trays of starts because I didn't water sufficiently. I did this wrong or that wrong, or I had the wrong soil. I didn't feed it any fertilizer. I fed it too much fertilizer. There are so many things that you can do wrong. You're probably gonna fail, but you know what? In the failure is the growth. So hang in there, because you will get it. So if this is your first year, I am super proud of you. Give yourself grace as you're learning. I still give myself grace. There's still so many things that I do wrong, and that's okay, because we're learning through the process. We are growing through the process, and that is definitely worth it. So I would say that those are some of the biggest things: soil, pots, heat sources, heaters, heat mats if you're growing inside, having racks. Another thing too I'll mention that is kind of silly, as far as like you wouldn't really consider it maybe a supply, but if you end up going without it, you realize just how necessary it is. and that is plant markers and Sharpies. We buy like the UV Sharpies, that way they don't fade in the sun, which when you're growing in a greenhouse is super important, because I cannot tell you how many times I've written on a plant marker and the sun has just faded my Sharpie, and then I had no idea what it was. There was actually one incident several years ago where I had to keep an entire tray of starts for myself because I couldn't confirm what variety it was because my Sharpie had been faded. And so that is something kind of silly. You can buy, I'll link all the ones that I have bought before. We're growing at such a large scale this year that I don't think I'm going to be doing plant markers this year. I probably will for like some of the stuff that's just mine. But as far as the bulk flowers and the bulk vegetables that we are growing to, you know, send to market or to the plant sale, I'm actually going to take my tray. I'm going to get some blue tape or some Scotch tape or whatever, and I'm going to stick it on the outside of the tray. And with that Sharpie, I'm going to write what it is. And so instead of going in, and I could just label one, so I could do that. That is an option. You could take a plant marker and do one if you have the entire tray the same. If not, or maybe you just want to be budget friendly, you can just take a piece of tape, slap it on your tray, and write what variety it is. And there you go, it's pretty simple. Definitely pretty simple, but something to keep in mind, because those things too, for a while, I could not find them anywhere. Out in my beds, Haas Tools make these long wooden ones, and that's what we use for like our onions and our garlics, and we have those long rows on the back part of the backyard. But in the beds, and that would be one thing to think about too, is if you are labeling them with a, like with the Scotch tape or whatever, when you transplant them out into your bed, you may want to think about putting a plant marker in there. For me, I pretty much know, and I have it all written down in my crop plans and in my own journal where everything is, that I don't need to do that because I can go back and reference where I've written that down before and know what variety I planted where. So that's going to be totally personal preference on what you want to do and how you want to do that. For me, I have found that when I put those plastic little markers in the soil, they end up breaking, they end up staying in the soil. I don't want plastic in my soil, and so I did do that for many years, but I've been trying to transition out of that just to ensure that plastic isn't just like hanging out in the soil and getting broken and lost. And usually I could never find them anyways when I needed to. The plant had gotten so big, and so I have just found that the plant markers, as far as in the garden beds, when I transfer everything out, hasn't really been the best option for me. I just prefer to have a gardening journal and keep it all jotted down. And also when I do that, I'm able to go through and put any sort of like, you know, pests that I had, any sort of disease that may have happened, and just really kind of keep detailed notes. And I know that that seems like a lot, especially on a large scale like this, but I can tell you that it's worth it. So my tried and trues, let's say Grand Marshal tomatoes. I was talking about that variety with a friend this morning. I know how that Grand Marshal tomato is going to perform in my high tunnel, which is where it has been grown last year, which is where it will be grown again this year. So I don't feel the need to have those detailed notes because I know what it's going to do. More than likely the same pests I dealt with last year, I will have this year. I am mainly keeping that detailed information on new varieties, trying to figure out, is this going to be added into something that I grow the continuous year? Was I able to sell it? Did it do what it was supposed to do? How was it as far as being uniform? All those things. And so that's something that I'm really just being super, super detailed with things that I'm selling and things that I haven't grown before. If it's just for my own family and it turned out bad, well, you know what, it's not that big of a deal. And so just know too that, again, what you do is going to depend on your scale and what your goals are, and that's totally fine. But I've got my first little plant here done. Look at that baby. All right, you guys, I have got a ton more of these to do actually, but I wanted to just talk to you guys about seed starting supplies, things to be thinking about now that the new year is upon us. We really do need to kind of kick it in high gear and start ordering these things if you haven't already, going through your current seed collection, figuring out what you need to. And honestly, this is a perfect time of year to inspire and encourage someone else to start a garden and grow food. I cannot tell you how important it is to share your story with someone else. Because my friend Jessica shared her story with me, here I am at what used to be her farm living out my best life, right? And so there's value in that. There's value in encouraging someone else and letting them know, yes, it is going to be hard, but yes, you can do it. And so that is what I'm going to challenge you guys with this week. Encourage someone to grow food and tell them what it means to you. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I'll talk to you soon.